Oh, wow, beautiful. Looks for all the people. And these people, when they speak, you'll be heard there. Right?
Yes.
Question.
I'll unmute it and they can ask.
Okay. Which one? Because now, of course, it's all this
so
one anyway.
If I unmute this now, what will happen is these might start capturing.
That's right. Yeah, we'll. So,
Vikas,
Yeah, Adarsh.
is it fine or do you still hear those voices?
No. The audio is loud and clear.
Okay, perfect.
Adarsh, can you go a little away from the terminal and talk once, just to check whether it's capturing?
How about Vikas?
It's fine. I'll come and set it up. Can you go on the other side?
Can you hear me now? Clear and clear?
yes.
Oh, perfect.
No. I understand. And we some of these lights off. And is there anything that will present it? No. The thing that. No. Oh, there's she must be joining this. No, I was thinking, I was lastly make sure we should have put something like on the top, like UNSDG Entrepreneurship, like kind of a small poster flyer or something like that. Now that it's too late, let's not worry about it. I can do one thing. We are having I can create in one of the screens. And other screens will happen. It will capture that one anyway. But how big? It's very small.
One which you have.
No. Or can we do? Can we project through? No, because the projectors cannot use it because they'll be using for this one, right? The presentation, right?
One thing what I can do is, so by the
Understood.
time these guys are coming and still expecting now, before the meeting will start. But the I'll project that. And when the meeting starts, they have to listen first.
I know that will be sure.
During this.
Okay, I'm just thinking. No, without disturbing these things, we haven't got a good project. No, right? No, if that is there. At least we can connect the laptop and we can do it here. Yeah, at least. And this will be seen there. No,
this is not only them, but at least who are coming there.
they will see that. We can put something. We are not using that project. Is there a projector here? That's a camera. And we have only one camera. One projector, but that will be using for this one. Now I'm just looking for me. This static, we are not using this one right now. And that but we can turn it off, right? This one. Because people will be seeing there, here, and all three of them. We can turn one off. Actually, we don't have to turn this off. Let me there. Oh, yeah. If you can connect a laptop to it and then put your SG that's all.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
These are also control items.
Oh, yeah.
Adesh, pause the recording for some time. Okay. So when the session starts, we'll turn on the recording again.
Yeah, it's paused. It's on pause. It's not. It's there. Yeah. Vikas, can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you, Adesh. Can you once come to this room?
Yeah.
I'll come there and I'll set the voice properly. Sound.
Vikas?
Adesh, can you hear us properly? I'll set the range. I'll set the speaker. Yeah, 1 minute.
I hear a lot of noises. So.
Is it clear, Adesh?
Yes.
The voice clear?
Yeah, the voice is clear.
It's not getting distorted at your end, right?
I hear a couple more voices. Is somebody else speaking near the voice?
We have people around. We have people around. So you can hear everyone, no?
Actually, you can stand here.
Yes, yes, I can hear you fine. Please.
Adarsh, is the voice clear?
Yeah, but
Yes, Rajesh, it's clear.
Which one clearly?
His voice is not clear to us. His voice is not so
I
clear.
can increase the volume.
in the city,
I just have to.
can you hear me?
Adarsh is busy doing something. Yes, yes.
Adarsh, can you hear me from here?
Yeah, can you speak again?
Can you hear me? Is it clear? Am I clear?
No, because it's, no, Sushant, it's kind of distorted. Do that again.
Is it better, Adarsh? You.
When we come, yeah.
That check will come. Hello?
Adarsh.
I just.
Adarsh, can you hear me?
Presidency.
Adarsh, is it clear now?
Headphone, that is headphone. No, I don't think it will be on.
It is like, so can we stop that for a minute? Yeah. Not the recording.
A very good morning, everyone. Today we gathered here today to discuss about some of the most pressing problems that we all always think about, right? So we will be all right. So we will be we will spend the next 3 hours today to address some of the pressing problems, and we have some eminent speakers with us. And these speakers, they have worked extensively in the line of work, and they contributed to the UNSDGs. Be the change that you wish to see in the world, once said Dr. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. In 2015, just like him, so many global leaders came together, and so many global leaders, social organizations, reformers, activists, NPOs, fighting for various pressing issues like poverty, hunger, child mortality rates, the spread of infectious diseases, emergency aid, human rights, inequality, illiteracy, financial assistance to countries in need, environmental protection, women empowerment, pollution, climate change, among so many other problems. To collaboratively resolve this, all the 192 member nations, they have come together and they've signed a memorandum in 2015, and they have come with the name called as UNSDGs, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They are also called as the global goals. So with just 10 years to go, so since it's from 2015, it's till 2030, right? So in the last 5 years, we have, as all the countries together, we have not been in the trajectory that we want to be by 2030. So in 2020, all these member nations again came together, and they have come to a resolve called, we will be focusing the next decade on solving these problems. And there were some course corrections that were done, and they're calling 2020 from 2021 to 2030 as the decade of action. So with this, we would like to invite all the speakers and all the attendees. Welcome, and we don't want a better atmosphere and auditorium than this. It's full of people, full of energy, as I can see at 9:30 in the morning. So without any further ado, I'll invite our Chief Innovation Officer of Geetham, Mr. Krish Nagegada, to come and address the gathering. Post which we will go on with the event. We will start with the event with the first speaker live at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Good morning. So it's nice to be
standing here in this room, this is part of the Venture Development Center, as it's called, VDC. This is something that we've conceived and have been working on for the last 2.5 years. And this ultimately, through the pandemic, it got built, and it is now a reality. I had only seen it on the drawing, and I've seen it physically this past week for the first time, and am in this classroom for the first time. So I'm quite nervous, if you can tell. Today we have a very important session. I would like to welcome, on behalf of approximately 23,000 students of Geetham, 3,000 faculty and staff spread across 21 institutes and 3 campuses. I would like to, on my own personal behalf, I would like to extend a hearty welcome to our distinguished guests of the morning, Dr. Narayanan Kotaram, who's here. Dr. Melissa Sassy will be joining at 10 o'clock. She's not here yet. She's beaming in from an international destination. Mr. Srinivasulu Mendu, who is here with us, and our own Dr. Pradeep Radhakrishnan. And I also extend an equally warm welcome to all the faculty, staff, students, and other guests that are physically here in this center and are beaming in from various geographies across India. Probably, I don't know if you have anyone beaming globally until Dr. Sassy joins. Well, entrepreneurs solve problems. The basic trait of an entrepreneur is to identify a problem and solve it. Solving problems comes naturally to them, whether it's developing a product or a service, or just tweaking a process for the larger, it could be for an individual benefit, for the benefit of a certain consumer, or for the benefit of a sector, a domain, a business, or a society at large. Entrepreneurs always solve problems, and they do it with a lot of passion, drive, focus, and dedication to the mission. Well, the UNSDG, Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, is all about solving problems and solving them at scale. So when you have such huge problems that have to be solved at scale, that impact not just one individual or one sector or one domain, but has an impact all over. It's a universal impact. It impacts the entire humanity and the environment. What else can be a better goal, a loftier goal than that? And entrepreneurs take a dive and conduct work. All of us actually should carry out our work and solve these problems collectively. Individually, we contribute. Collectively, we come together to solve these problems. So these goals that the United Nations has set, these are 17 areas, the 17 goals. They go from poverty to hunger to climate to energy to economic development, equality, gender equality, and what have you. So all of these together solve. If we collectively come together and attempt to solve these problems, we create peace and prosperity for the people and the planet. That's what United Nations says. So this is a lofty mission. All of us are in it together, and entrepreneurs have a big role to play in coming up with solutions that build on each other and lead to achievement of a goal. At Geetham, we have, as I said, we are a university spread across 3 campuses for 23,000 students, a very diversified faculty that we have, going from sciences to engineering to management to humanities to even the medicine, dental, nursing. Even most recently, we have established a school of public policy. So through all of these institutes, we are, I think, well equipped to solve these, to attempt to solve these problems. So at Geetham, we have defined a research and innovation continuum. What we mean by that is, as educational institution, as an institute of higher learning, we conduct research. Besides teaching, learning, we have research activity going on. We have provided an infrastructure to extend that research to translate into products and services, and further extend into viable enterprises through entrepreneurship policies that we have defined. So these enterprises could solve a problem, a particular problem for a business or for the society at large. So through that, we have created a vibrant ecosystem in Geetham by defining these policies for the individual, the community, and the society at large. The emphasis here, and we've created the infrastructure that I talked about, the Venture Development Center here that we are all sitting in today. So through this, we feel that by encouraging our faculty, students, alumni to come together to extend the research that they conduct, the faculty research that they conduct, to extend that into products and services and enterprises to attempt to solve some of these problems that we have. The research and innovation continuum, as I mentioned earlier, is an attempt for us to create an environment whereby all of us collectively come together and march towards a mission. We have taken care to, when defining this research and innovation continuum, we have taken care to address at least 12 of the 17 SDG, the global goals that United Nations has defined. So with that, I think Geetham as a university has a commitment to further its research into areas of development and entrepreneurship to solve these problems. Nobody will be able to solve these problems overnight. This is a collective effort. It will take years and years, sometimes decades, to solve these problems. But there's an attempt that should go into it. There's an effort that should be put into it. And Geetham as a university, I assure you, is committed to that mission. So with that, I would like to extend a hearty welcome to all of you. We have, the organizers have laid out a very interesting agenda for the morning. So I would like you all to pay attention. I once again thank the speakers and the guests that have taken the trouble to come all the way during a pandemic time. Maybe we're at the tail end of the pandemic, but nevertheless, thank you for coming and spending your valuable time with us. And I wish you all the best, and we are in this together, and let's march forward. Thank you.
Good morning, one and all. Before we get started, can I request all of you to please put your mobile phones either on silent mode or on switch off mode. And also, in case if any of us have to move out, could we please use the podium towards that side to move out rather than using the middle podium. Okay. So before we begin, India is a country with a growing population and increasing needs for comfortable living. In making these ecosystems more affordable and sustainable, the entire country seems to be facing certain challenges like affordable healthcare, support from institutions and industry, education, food, and nutrition. In order to overcome this existential crisis, we need to take steps such as driving more and more entrepreneurship to make people move in the right direction. Today, we intend to create awareness about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals within the ecosystem of Geetham and communities in and around Geetham. I am Devleena, coach at VDC Geetham. Geetham was founded in 1980 by an inspired group of eminent intellectuals and industrialists of Andhra Pradesh, led by Dr. MBBS Murthy, former member of parliament and popular philanthropist. So let's take a quick look at our lineup for today. And we are positive that there's a lot of learning and insights coming our way from these speakers. Firstly, we have Dr. Melissa Sassy. Dr. Sassy is the Chief Penguin of Student and Entrepreneur Experience within the IBM Z division of IBM. Dr. Sassy is also the global head of IBM HyperProtect Accelerator with the 100 startups in her portfolio with a focus on enabling early stage startups to build and scale. Her aim is to introduce startups to the IBM cloud with a lens on data protection, privacy, and security. Dr. Sassy's program consists of fintech, health tech, reg tech, digital assets, music, ed tech, and other small to medium enterprises looking to secure to their most sensitive data. Dr. Sassy's Startup Accelerator has 50% of our startups with at least one female founder, 30% with at least one Black founder, and 15% with one Latinx founder. Dr. Sassy is the Call for Code Judge, an initiative aimed at creating technical solutions to solve the UNSDG goals. We then have with us Dr. Narayan Kotaram. Dr. Kotaram is an experienced technology expert with a demonstrated history of working in the biotechnology industry with skills in plant breeding and molecular biology. He is also the founder MD of a leading technology-based seed company, Styaika Seeds. He was also the founder chairman of a fast-grown food technology enterprise, Kotaram Agro Foods, with the Soulful brand as its core focus, which was later acquired by Tata Consumer Foods. He is also the founder director of several technology-based companies in the food and agriculture space. He is also the director and CEO of a leading agricultural genomics company, AgriGenome Labs Private Limited. We also have with us Mr. Srinivasulu Mendu. Mr. Mendu's goal is to promote social business and develop innovative and sustainable solutions to improve the productivity and quality of human life, with a major focus on the agriculture sector. He has over 24 years of extensive work experience with farmers in agriculture business, development services, rural transformation initiatives, with institution building services, along with fair understanding and exposure to microfinance operations in India, and also 3 years of field work experience in Mozambique, Africa. He also did agro consulting projects in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Thailand, and South Korea on consulting and training assignments. We then have with us Mr. Pradeep Kumar Radhakrishnan. Dr. Radhakrishnan completed MCH at AIMS and is the country's first fellow doctoral in CTVS from STI MST. He is also a postdoctoral fellow in ECMO. He is a fellow of the American College of Cardiology and a fellow of the Indian Association of Cardiothoracic Surgeons. Dr. Radhakrishnan started his career in cardiac surgery at Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Cardiac Surgery in Puttaparthi, India, and have successfully performed 12,500 cardiac surgeries. He served as a visiting professor and senior consultant at Travancore Heart Institute and Medical College, SUT Patam, SUT Royal, and PRS Group of Hospitals in Trivandrum. He was working as a senior consultant at AHRI prior to taking over as professor and head of division of cardiothoracic surgery at Jimsar Geetam University in AP. His active areas of research include total artificial heart, arrhythmia prediction devices, leadless battery MRI compatible pacemakers, nanoparticle therapy, dry energy forms of treatment, zero gravity cardiac surgery interventions, AI enabled devices and instrumentation, VR platforms for surgery, computational fluid dynamics, cardiac genomics, and stem cell therapy. So dear attendees, we invite you once again in this event to participate, engage, and leverage a great deal of value from the exciting lineup that we have today, and that has extensively worked in the promotion and implementation of sustainable development goals, aka the global goals. We will start with the keynote by Dr. Melissa Sassy on how students, educators, researchers, social entrepreneurs, and you work towards achieving the UN SDGs through community-based action, post which we will be heading to a panel discussion, which will be moderated by Principal Coach of VDC Geeta, Mr. Bollam Rajkumar. Post that, we will again, after a high tea break for 20 minutes, we will gather up for Mr. Kotaram's session on achieving towards a zero hunger world through entrepreneurship. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Sassy as she connects with us online from halfway across the globe. Okay.
Let's engage the audience. We have about 7 minutes to go, right? So let's see how we can make best use of the 7 minutes.
Just getting up for that.
Okay,
I'll let you do it.
Okay, that's fine. You'll get it. So, how many here are faculty? And the rest, I guess, are students. Is there anyone other than a faculty or a student here? Yes?
I'm from Western.
Okay, hi, welcome. Okay, we have next guest. Obviously, I can't do this of the online audience, but entrepreneurship, as we all understand it, we have, as I mentioned in my remarks earlier, we have a commitment to promoting entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial thinking at Keynote. So the connection between entrepreneurship and UNSDG, that's what we are here today to discuss. UNSDG are now, as mentioned, very ambitious goals. So we have set ourselves up against huge goals. In business lingo, we call them BHAG. BHAG is bold, hairy, audacious goals. Each one of the 17 goals is huge by itself, and 17 together is gigantic. So, in order to get there, in order to achieve those goals, solve the problems, we feel that all of us entrepreneurs have a big role to play, and entrepreneurs are not born. Does anyone believe that entrepreneurs are born or are prepared or trained? They can be trained, right? Are entrepreneurs born? Does anyone believe that there's a born natural entrepreneur and not a trained individual? Okay, so we're all on the same page. Over here at Geetham, the Venture Development Center, that's a mission we have undertaken, how to train entrepreneurs. So, as you know, education institutions churn out students, engineers, doctors, we have managers, we have scientists, lawyers, all of them get churned out of educational institutions of higher learning. Architects, I'm sorry, I should have said architects. We have an architecture institute here. So students come out and they look for jobs. Right? That's a very common thing. That right from the day you join, or your parents have brought you into a university, the goal is, oh, my son or daughter studies well for the next 3 years or 4 years and gets a comfortable job. Entrepreneurship is about not seeking a job, but starting a business and creating jobs. So as entrepreneurs, we flip that. From a business seeker, from an employment seeker, we create employment. Well, the goal here is not that every single one of you will become an entrepreneur and will start creating jobs. The goal for us in establishing an entrepreneurial ecosystem at Geetham is to provide an opportunity for you to develop entrepreneurial thinking. By that, what I mean is when you approach a problem with a solution, try to create a solution for a problem, there are different ways you can approach a problem. So, do you approach it in a creative way, to solve a problem in a very innovative, using innovative methods. It could be technology, it could be process, it could be anything, but innovatively solving a problem innovatively. So innovation is at the heart of entrepreneurship. So it's innovation is nothing but doing things differently to achieve scale. So you can always do something to solve a problem, but can you do it innovatively and can you do it at scale? So two things define innovation and scale define whether you're pursuing entrepreneurship or not. So when you don't need to do that, but if your approach to solving a problem, you bring in that type of a discipline of approaching something with a creative way of thinking and a creative way of solving, then you're pursuing entrepreneurship. So generally the misnomer is that when we say we are pursuing entrepreneurship, the question as to how many startups do you have, or how many startups are coming out of your ecosystem. So that is not the intent. The intent is that we provide an environment to promote creative thinking, entrepreneurial approaches. So with that, we want to achieve our goal of creating an ecosystem here. So through that ecosystem, we can solve any problem. It could be for the business, for the society. The UN Sustainable Development Goals is no exception. So all of us together can do that by developing that mindset. It's all about the mindset. Okay, so are we all set? Have we filled in the gap? Okay, thank you. I hope I haven't bored you.
Okay, so we have Dr. Sassy with us today. Good morning and welcome, Dr. Sassy.
Hello, everyone. Are you ready for me, or would you like to do an introduction first?
You have been introduced, so we can go ahead with the talk.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
We are ready for you.
We are ready for you.
Oh, okay, super. I apologize for being a bit late. It's 5:30 in the morning here in Poland, and let me do a quick introduction of how I fit into the world. So my name is Dr. Melissa Sassy. No, I'm not from Poland. You're probably maybe wondering what might bring me to Poland. For those of you who are familiar with the UN world and the many conferences and opportunities that are available through the UN, there is an annual conference that happens all over the world, and every year they pick a different location, and this year it's happening in Poland, and the event is called Internet Governance Forum. And the conference is all about bringing digital inclusivity to the world, which is my cause. I focus on two UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we'll talk in a moment about kind of the different things that you can think of if you're not sure of what your thing is. But I focus on two different elements of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. One is quality education, and the second one is decent work and economic growth. I'm very passionate also about gender inclusion and a number of other different goals. But here in Poland, over the last week, there have been a variety of interventions taking place by thought leaders from around the world about how do we bring a more inclusive internet to the world. For those of you who are not familiar, 50% of the world is not connected to the internet, and many of us enjoy access. Many of us can afford access. But for those of you and those of us who've spent time in rural communities or other parts of the world, we recognize that not all the world has access to the knowledge and tools and collaboration opportunities and opportunities to advance our education or advance our healthcare outcomes or our economic opportunities by having access to the internet, access to devices, whether that's a smartphone, a laptop, a tablet, what have you, and combining those two things together with digital skills to create outcomes like technology entrepreneurship, like, again, the opportunity to advance your education like we're doing today, or collaborate online. So I had a number of different speaking engagements that was all about connecting the least developed and developing countries around the world to affordable internet, and making sure that we have the right content available in local communities to make meaningful use of the internet. So that's what brings me to Poland. Normally, I am based out of Dallas, Texas. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to share my screen. Give me one moment to present. And I'd like to ask, this is, I think, something we're all getting used to now, that where we're, learning to collaborate online and engage online. Can you see my screen and can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, super. So what you should be seeing is a green and black slide that says Hi Social Entrepreneurs. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, we've crossed the major barriers. 1, was I able to get in and show up on time? 2, can you hear me? And 3, can you see my presentation? So perfect. So I think the first question is, you're in this course for, a reason. You're passionate about a specific cause. Maybe you want to land your first social good startup. Maybe you already have one. Or maybe you're here to figure out how do you get onto that pathway, or how do you enable others to land their social entrepreneurship dreams. So for those of you who are on Twitter, you can find me at Mentor Africa with a K. And I work at IBM. That's what I call my day job. I'm both an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur, meaning I have my own startup, I have my own nonprofit, and I also am innovating and creating inside of someone else's company. So inside of IBM, one of the largest tech companies in the world. And I've run student and entrepreneur experience globally within the IBM Z division of IBM. So that means I have the wonderful opportunity of working within the intersection of students and entrepreneurs. So I help students realize their passions in tech, whether that be computer science, data science, what have you, but also empower early stage entrepreneurs to build and scale. I have 100 startups in my portfolio, and this coming year, so in 2022, I'll be growing that portfolio to 150 startups. So I have an opportunity to review many different pitch decks, meet many different entrepreneurs. My program is global. I have about 50 or more countries represented within my program. So again, it's very global, and 53% of our startups have at least one female founder. 34% of our startups have at least one Black founder. Why do I mention this? Because diversity and inclusion in anything that we do is super important, and very important to me as a person. So enough about me, let's talk about social entrepreneurship. So first and foremost, I think it's important to really ground ourselves and say, okay, what is an entrepreneur? And I think that I could give you this easy definition of, someone who creates a business or businesses, someone who does this on their own, and someone who takes personal risk to do so. That's an easy way of defining it. Many of you are probably like, okay, fine, I get that, I know that, I understand that. But what's an intrapreneur? A lot of us have not heard this term before, but for those of you who who have, just hang out, and we'll make sure that those of us who are not familiar with the term, are familiar now. But it's really someone who creates new ideas inside of someone else's company, or someone who's running, let's say, a scrappy business, or a business inside of someone else's company, and you're creating, you're innovating, you're going beyond the company's, current business priorities, and you're thinking, let's say, outside in, versus inside out. So let's think then, what's a social entrepreneur? All right, we're going to find that out too. And many of you are like, okay, fine, I know what all these things are. I hope we're going to, get into something that is, more meaty and more meaningful. But, I think a lot of people think that when you have this cause that you're passionate about, this effort that you're, super interested in, that makes the world a better place, that you can't make money at the same time. I actually define social entrepreneurship as doing well while doing good. And that means making money and making the world a better place. So a lot of, people who are looking to create a charity, for example, I always encourage them to really think about whether that's what they want to do. Meaning, do you want to rely on philanthropy and charity and the kindness of others, or the budget of others to fund the work that you do, to help make the world a better place, to solve societal problems and challenges, to bring about good? Or would you rather come up with something that's strategic and sustainable and enables you to generate your own income while also making the world a better place? So I'm here to tell you that you can make money and also make the world a better place at the same time. But first, let's think about where do you start? Where do you go first? Step one is really defining your social cause. So you got to know what wakes you up in the morning. And I don't know about, everyone in the room, but I know that for 10 years of my life, I was in a job. I was good at that job. I went to school to study that thing. My company needed me to do the job, and I made, good money doing the job. They liked what I did. They needed me to do it, but it didn't wake me up in the morning. It didn't fire me up. I didn't wake up thinking about how I was going out to do that thing. I wasn't solving societal change, or I wasn't bringing about societal change. I wasn't making the world a better place. Yes, I was feeding my family. Yes, I had a good job, but I wasn't making a difference in the world. Not all of us care about that, but I'm sure, since all of you are in this room right now, that's something that you care about in some way, shape, or form, or you would not be here today. Not all of us know what our cause is. Not all of us know what fires us up. Some of us may say, yes, I know what fires me up. Some of us may say, no, I don't really know. Or maybe, I like all of these different things. Or maybe some of us may say, you know what, I really, really don't know. When I joined, I heard one of our colleagues, one of our speakers, talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, a great place to start. As social entrepreneurs or people who are very interested in social entrepreneurship, we should be very, very, very intimately familiar with all 17 of these. And we should check out globalgoals.org, and we should dive into each one of these goals. So if I were to, kind of pick out, again, the ones I'm passionate about, and hopefully you can see my screen here. Oops, let me go back to that slide. I know maybe some of the words are a little bit small. But again, I'm passionate about number 4, quality education. I'm passionate about gender equality. I'm passionate about decent work and economic growth. I also like reduced inequalities, which I think are, kind of similar to a few of these. So those are 4 that wake me up in the morning and make me want to do the thing. You may look at this and say, oh, I'm really passionate about clean water, or I'm really passionate about life underwater, or maybe climate action, or maybe life on land. So think about, what is it, or what are those things that fire you up? What are those things that, you look at and it's just something that draws you and that you really want to work on that. You may have expertise in that area, or you may have to build that expertise. Thankful to the internet and courses like this, you're able to tap into so much knowledge that none of our elders had access to before. We have the ability to become an expert just by accessing that thing called the internet. Was I born to focus on tech entrepreneurship and digital inclusion? No. Did I become one? Yeah. How did I do that? By collaborating with others, by reading everything I could online, every study, every expert, going to Twitter and following everyone that I could possibly find who was working on the things that I'm most passionate about, reading what they wrote, reading their blogs, until I figured out, how do I become a thought leader? How do I volunteer for nonprofits? How do I volunteer for startups to gain the experience that I needed? All right. So second thing then is to really recognize your superpowers. All right. So for example, I'm really good at building communities. I'm good at public speaking. I'm good at collaborating with others. I'm good at empathizing with my audience, empathizing with my clients, or putting design thinking into practice. I'm good at creativity and innovation. I'm good at connecting things together that were unconnected before. I'm good at writing and researching and bringing new ideas forward that people hadn't thought about before. Think about what your secret sauce is. It may be that you've got a background in technology and you're a developer, and that you're really good at mobile application development, or you're really good at website development, or you're really good at some aspect of another industry. What is it that you're good at, both from a let's call it hard skill perspective, but what are you also good at when it comes to soft skills or professional development skills or personal development skills? What's your secret sauce? What's your subject matter expertise? What are your strengths? What do people always say? You know what, you're really good at this thing. Because we got to know ourselves to know where we want to work and what we want to do. And then it's really about defining what social challenge you're going to solve that makes the world a better place. And that means, for example, bubbling things down, boiling things up and down until you figure out what is that problem you're going to solve. And making it real, meaning you're thinking about it from your local community, maybe your country, maybe your village, maybe your city, maybe a company. You're backing up that problem, whatever that problem is. So you've identified the problem that you're going to solve. And you've got to make sure that you're solving a problem that really exists. Meaning you've got data to say, you know what? In my community, for example, women and girls are not going into technical roles. And maybe you might say, wow, I've done some research. I've got my hands on some research, and only 20 some odd % of the workforce is made up of women and girls in tech, let's say. And maybe you look and you say, okay, I see this is a problem. Wow, it's related to gender inclusion. It could be related to education. It could be related to decent work and economic growth. It could be related to a number of different, UN Sustainable Development Goals. But I've got some data. It's objective. It's real world data. It's up to date. It's reputable. It's reliable, and it's trustworthy. And it's something you can get your arms around potentially solving. we're not getting caught up in media misinformation and disinformation. There's a lot of challenges out there with data that's not accurate, information that's not accurate. We always have to make sure that we've got our arms around scholarly data. Again, it's trustworthy, it's reliable, and it's not fake. So remember, anytime you're kind of trying to solve a problem, make sure that you're not getting caught up in either of these things. Because as you go about trying to solve that problem, you may realize that, wait a second, there's not really a problem after all. But the problem I mentioned, it is a problem. There is data to back it up. All right, so next you want to craft your problem statement. You want to think about what's the problem that you're solving exactly? Who has that problem? Where does that problem exist? When does the problem come to life? And how does it impact others? And again, think about a specific target audience, a specific community, a specific city, and maybe you have a plan to take over the world. That's fine. But when you're going about creating a business, even if you plan to take over the world, think about what is that bite-sized element that you can that you can impact in the first year, in the first 6 months. Because you're not going to take over the world right away. You may be wildly successful and you may roll things out much quicker than you plan. But you want to crawl, you want to walk, you want to run, and then you want to fly. And you may never plan to take over the world and impact, how do we get more women and girls into STEM around the world? You may want to solve this in your community, in your college, in your high school. But again, you've got to start somewhere and you shouldn't start too big, even if you have dreams and aspirations of taking over the world. You then want to think about your motivation. You want to craft your founder story. And that means, how do you connect your personal story? So what connects you to that problem? What connects you to the solution that you potentially have come up with? Because that's part of it too. I haven't included every single thing that you want to do as a social entrepreneur when it comes to creating a business. These are really the introductory steps of thinking about what motivates you, what do you want to solve, what kind of expertise do you have to bring to the table, and how do you identify something? Now I want to switch over, to something else in the next few slides. But before we get there, when you're telling stories to people about what you're doing and why you're doing it, you want to compel your audience to act, compel your audience to feel a certain way, and make feel like you are the only one, the only person, the only team, the only company that's meant to solve that problem. So we've talked a little bit about motivation and a founder story and, how to identify what kind of problem you want to solve, where to go. Let's talk about the traits now of an entrepreneur. And there's some common traits. First thing is, are you comfortable with uncertainty? You better be. Because the life of an entrepreneur is not certain. The future is unknown. You may have a vision of where you want to go and be, but it may end up in a different place. But you do have this vision of rethinking and reimagining the future. You want things to be different, especially on the social front. But you also recognize, this in your life and in business, that, you don't know the future, you can't predict it. You can try to, predict it in some way and do some modeling. That's what, predictive modeling and some, machine learning and artificial intelligence tools, as well as our own brains, help us do. But that nothing is 100% certain. But the most important thing is knowing how to handle uncertainty. So how do you do that? You focus on what you can control. You know that you can control and shape the future, but you don't try too hard predicting it. You're taking action, and you're making progress against the goals that you've set out for yourself. Maybe your team, maybe your company. And you know that you often have to course correct, sometimes more than you want, especially as the future unfolds. And sometimes you have to pivot. Sometimes you think you've got it all figured out and you have this pathway that you can see super clearly, and then COVID happens and everything gets messed up. Or something else happens, either personally or professionally in the world. We know that we often fail and we have to pivot. Oops. Hold on one second. Let me present that again. I pressed the wrong button. There we go. All right. One of my favorite tools to really figure out the business elements of an entrepreneur, of my business, is creating a business model canvas. And I don't care whether you're in school, out of school, you've already got a business, you've got 10 startups, you got one startup, you're participating in a hackathon. A business model canvas is an absolutely wonderful place to start. And that means recognizing who your key partners are or could be. What are your key activities? What are the key resources that you need to bring your business forward? What is your value proposition? Meaning, do you have product market fit? Do people perceive value from what you've created? Now that means you've got a problem. You've identified who your customers are. You know what value you create for those customers. You've created a solution. You know what kind of customer relationships you might need. You know what kind of sales channels or marketing channels you might need. You know how much it's going to cost to set up your business, how much it's going to take to keep running it, and how much money you're going to bring in. Because again, you're an entrepreneur, you're a social entrepreneur. You're doing well while doing good, meaning you're making the world a better place and you're making money at the same time. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about buyer personas. For me, one of the best ways of gaining access to starting your own business is to understand your buyer, to understand your client, to understand the individuals or businesses that you're planning to impact. And how do we do that? I'm going to just stop sharing. Well, oh, I should be able to see here, I think. Let me know. Can you see my my screen if I go to Google? Can you see that now, or are you still seeing the presentation?
We can see your screen.
Okay, super. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to Google buyer persona template. This is something you can easily do. And I know this is in Portuguese now, so in Polish. Let me switch this to English. Oh, thankfully, now it's in English. I don't read Polish. So let's go over here to images. You can find tons of materials online when it comes to buyer personas. And I'm going to bring one up now. This is just a random one that I'm pulling up. And it's all about helping you understand and empathize with your audience, your buyer, if you will. This is one example a persona template or a buyer's persona. This helps you understand who is your buyer, where do they go for information, what do they use to search for information, where do they ingest content, what social media channels are they on, or what are their preferences, who are the influencers that they follow, or who has the power to impact their purchase decisions or impact and influence them. What are their favorite brands? What are some of their objectives? What is their background or their demographics? What are they interested in? What are their goals, their frustrations, their pain points, aspirations, joys? These are many of the things that I focus on when I think about a buyer persona or a buyer. So if I go back to Google, there's a whole bunch of examples here. You can see another example here. There are tons of templates out here. It's all about understanding your target audience. You're thinking about it as if that's a real person, so you really understand them. It helps you think about, how do you market to them? How do you sell to them? To do that, you've got to research. You got to really understand where they're located, what their language is, what their interests are. As I mentioned, how old are they? What stage of life are they in? We talked about social media. We talked about goals and pain points. So lots of different ways that you can better understand your audience. The other thing is to think about design thinking. For those of you who may not be familiar with design thinking is really about talking with your audience to capture their insights. It's about understanding their wants and needs and aspirations, pain points, frustrations. You can even use it, you can use it with customers, you can use it with your community, you can use it with team members. It's really about being able to put yourself into the shoes of those you're impacting, your community, your customers, your partners. And it's being able to experiment rapidly by using empathy. It's a systematic process for being able to gain access to insights. It's about being audience-centered, customer-centered, people-centered. It's one of the best ways of learning about others. It's a systematic process. It's about observing. It's about empathizing. It's about testing and learning and putting those changes into place and continuing the cycle. You'll find lots of material on design thinking as well. Lots of design thinking material. MIT uses it, IBM uses it, Apple uses it, and there are lots of different ways of defining how the process works. But as long as you remember that it's about empathy, it's a process that you follow that's continuous, it's about experimenting and implementing those learnings and identifying the things that I mentioned, you're golden. And you can use whatever design thinking process you want, whatever you find on the internet. Just remember to test often. Test your ideas often and test them early. If you've got an idea and you've got a solution, test it out with people who would potentially be using that solution. Maybe even before you build the thing, as you're building the thing, as you have different iterations of the thing. It's better to identify a potential failure than to fail and recognize it after. It's more costly and it's more time consuming. So a social entrepreneur knows their MVP, their minimum viable product. We'll talk about what that is in a second. But it's also recognizing that sometimes you've got to pivot. Sometimes your audience said this sounds great and something external happens and you got to change or course correct. Or maybe you find out that things are not going as well. Okay. All right, super. So MVP, minimum viable product. You know, it's a service that allows you to launch or it's a product or service that allows you to launch your new solution. And it's the minimum amount, it's a minimum, let's say, product or service that would enable you to gain revenue, market share, or some kind of customer footprint. All right. So you're comfortable with failure. You understand your passions and your strengths. You're a lifelong learner or learn it all. You thrive in ambiguity. You seek out change. You look to critically solve problems. You're always innovating and you're breaking the mold. You're an innovator. You're a creator. You're a maker. You're a doer. You get things done and you're big and bold and full of ideas. You're not getting caught up in that shiny thing or that squirrel in the corner. You're prioritizing as you see fit. You're standing behind your goals and your beliefs and you're taking responsibility for yourself and your team. And you know that there's always a new way of doing things and that things can always be better. You've got courage. You aren't afraid of taking calculated risks. But again, you're doing that based on reputable, reliable data, facts, and objectivity. So again, you're creative. You're passionate, you're innovative, you're persistent, you've got patience, you've got purpose, and you have empathy for people. And you recognize that you can make the world a better place and you can make money at the same time. So I hope I didn't go over time. I hope this was helpful. I've included a link here at the bottom. I run many events, all of them free and virtual, many talks. I produce a lot of content. You can find my content in my IBM world at ibm.biz/student hub. And it's free to register. I would encourage all of you to register. I'm going to put it in the chat window for those of you who are connected online. But it's simple. You fill out the form, you click on yes on some terms and conditions after you validate your email address. And for those of you who are looking to improve your digital skills, improve your professional development skills, and think about your entrepreneurial spirit, this is a great place to go. So I'm going to just put that in the chat window now. And I don't know if everybody can see that, but I will put it in there anyway. Okay, super.
The session is open for any questions. Melissa, would you like to take any questions?
Yeah, sure. Just help me make sure that I can hear the questions in case it's a little bit hard to hear in the room.
Thank you.
All right, I see one in the chat window. Entrepreneurship is universal or changing the pattern country to country. You know, I think that it comes to life differently around the world. You know, because all of us are different. You know what I mean? If you think about the way that, you know, Jeff Bezos runs his company and his personality is different than the way Bill Gates runs his company or has run his company, is different than the way, you know, other, you know, startups run their companies. We all have different traits in terms of, or I shouldn't say traits, we all have different personality types. But a lot of these things are universal, you know, meaning you've got to have a problem that you're solving. You've got to have a solution. You got to have a, you know, product market fit. You've got to have a business model. you've got to have, a way of getting to your customers. Your customers have to want to utilize your service or your product. You may go about it differently. You may talk about it differently in certain parts of the world. What may motivate a buyer might be different in different parts of the world. But ultimately, there are certain things that you're attacking, if you will, as an entrepreneur or as a social entrepreneur, in the same way. You're just maybe translating it a little bit differently depending upon who you are and who your audience is. All right, don't be shy if you have any questions. Come on. I know it's always scary when you're sitting in the room and thinking, is my question dumb? Is everyone going to laugh at me? But I'm sure that others are thinking, yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned two things. One is about, so you mentioned two points. One is about 50% of the world only having internet, and also just economic growth. And based on that, I want to ask that now, because remote work is happening and a lot of because of internet, the world is also becoming hyper connected, and so many of the companies are also hiring people from across India. How do you think with this whole remote work situation, not only the global economic growth will be impacted, but also country-specific economic growth will be impacted?
So is there someone who's maybe close to a mic who could just share that for me again, just to make sure I heard it okay? It was a little bit hard for me to hear, and I apologize. I heard economic growth and I heard India. So I didn't hear enough to answer you.
Just a second. Are you using the microphone? Just press the button and
Press the button and continuously
you need to keep it pressed when you speak. First, introduce yourself. Say your name and where you're from, so that Sassy knows who she's addressing.
So I'm Shobit.
Hey, nice to meet you. Thank you for asking a question. You have solved the first big wicked challenge of the day, and that's not being afraid to ask questions when the heat is on.
So it's a segment. Coming back to the question, you mentioned 2 points. One is about economic growth, and also 50% of the world are using internet. And in India, there's also this concept of NBU, which is next billion users. So a lot of these companies will come to India not only to get people on the internet, but also to give out jobs. And how do you think this whole remote work situation and new internet users coming up, how do you think firstly, global economy will be impacted, and secondly, country-specific economy could be impacted?
Yeah, I think that, there is solid evidence that there is a direct tie between access to the internet and, growth in GDP, for example, in individual countries and in individual communities. But, this comes with, a great challenge of making sure that as the next billion people are coming online, they're doing it in a safe and secure fashion, because we can all sit here and say, oh, the internet is a great thing, right? Look at what we're able to do today. But, for those of you who may come from a remote village, you may know that not everybody can read or write. And so, what are those tools and those things that this woman out in the, and it doesn't necessarily even need to be a woman, it could be anyone, what are those things that they can use to drive economic growth in their own community, in their own life, in their own family? And so I think that one of the things that I spoke about yesterday, and it was kind of focused on the continent of Africa, and it was all about, it's great for us to have connectivity, and we need to have connectivity, but it's not just about bringing connectivity and making sure that people are connected. It's also about the right content, the right locally relevant content, and the right locally relevant solutions that are being created and generated by local entrepreneurs. So what I mean by that is, it's not just about saying, okay, let's bring, a tech bro from Silicon Valley to come and solve, rural India's challenges. Maybe there's some learnings that could come from, Silicon Valley or from, wherever else. But I'm a really big fan of making sure that we are creating local entrepreneurs that are solving local challenges, creating local content in local languages that are locally relevant, and generating solutions that really does move the needle, when it comes to a local farmer, for example. So a local farmer who might be, growing rice may not care about ever becoming a mobile application developer. Maybe that person doesn't even have the aptitude or knowledge or interest or brain power, or whatever, to recognize that, hey, that's a career path for me. It may be that, that individual wants to continue being a rice farmer. So as a rice farmer, getting access to the internet, what's meaningful for that individual? It may be gaining access to prices or, different opportunities to sell his or her rice or different ways of doing things. Or it may be saying, wow, you know what? I could do some cool things with IoT. And now I've learned that if I have these sensors and this data and analytics, that I could do X, Y, and Z, with my my crop, with my land. Or, it could be, for example, this is one thing I really, really love. I work with a startup at IBM called Beat Club. And Beat Club is founded by a Grammy award-winning music producer called Timbaland. And I don't know if any of you know who Timbaland is, but he is a famous producer who's worked with Madonna and Jay-Z and Justin Timberlake and all these, kind of famous Hollywood types. And he has created this new startup that I work with that is all about democratizing access to the music industry. And he works, and I can't remember the name of the young man, but he works with a young man from India who didn't have access to the internet in his home. He didn't have access to affordable internet in his home. And he went to a computer lab. And he gained access to the computer lab and taught himself how to make beats. Right? And he got so good at working in the computer lab and making beats that he now makes thousands of dollars every single month making beats and selling beats. It's something that he was passionate about, which is music. It's something that he learned in terms of his skill by access to the internet. And he also learned how to sell them in a marketplace. And one of the things that Timbaland is doing is enabling, through this new marketplace that he's launching, is connecting your basement bedroom producers, people who are producing vocals and, other types of music, and enabling them to be recognized and discovered, teaching them financial literacy, helping them to create NFTs and having a crypto component. So there's so many different cool things that each one of us could do just by having access to the internet and just by having skills. And I hope that answered your question and I didn't blab on too much.
Good morning. I hope my voice is audible to you.
I'm sorry?
Ma'am, I hope my voice is audible to you, ma'am.
Oh yeah, I can hear it now. Sometimes I'm also on my computer, and instead of having my external speaker today, so it's also not the best quality on my side. But yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, ma'am. First of all, good morning. I'm Ashish, and I'm a student at Keynote University. So my question here is that, as we all know that most of the businesses, most of the businesses, somewhere their ultimate goal is to earn profit and earn revenue. So how can it be at par with serving the society or the mankind?
Can you repeat it again? I'm sorry. It's hard for me. It's still a little bit hard for me to hear. And I'm sorry that's so annoying for you. I know everybody in the room is probably like, oh, I heard you. So if you could repeat it again one more time.
How can earning profit and serving the society be at par?
Yeah, I still didn't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Can I just Or what is it?
Yeah. Let's see if you can try. Thank you, and I apologize.
Hello, Melissa. I will follow up on Atish's question.
Yeah, super. And if somebody wants to type it in, if that's easier, that's fine with me as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Narayan. I am a visitor here to Geetham from Bangalore. The question is, you mentioned that social enterprises have to be profitable. I agree with you.
Yes. And
But-
some of them have failed. Some of them have failed massively.
In some parts of this country and among some groups, profit is a bad word. And do you find such attitudes in other parts of the world? And oftentimes people think of a social enterprise, confuse it with charity. So if somebody were to argue that making profit may not be a great idea, how do you debate with that?
That's a really good point. How do you make sure that you are not, here's how I look at it. I think that there's a difference between being a social entrepreneur and having a charity that's predatory in nature that works, toward your own pocket and your own advantage, right? So the difference I see, and I bet you, if you asked maybe 10 different people this question, you might get 10 different answers. But let me try to take my, my stab at it. I think we've all seen charities that take donations, and those donations don't go to where they need to go. They don't go where they were intended, to go. And you have a leader who said, if you give me X, I'm going to go out and solve all these things. And a fraction of that money goes to where it's supposed to go, right? We've seen that over and over again with, predatory charitable funds and foundations, or situations where you think you're giving money toward a cause to help the homeless, teach women and girls, feed whatever, there are many out there. And some of them, you can look at their books, and their books are public. I know, for example, in the US, there is an organization, and this organization, I'm not going to name it because I don't want to say disparaging comments about a specific charity, but there is an organization that is very visible during the holidays, during Christmas time.
Sassy,
So, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we will be soon moving into a panel discussion with all the speakers, where we'll be discussing about UNSDGs and academia, the interdependability for success. And this is going to be moderated by our principal coach, Dr. Bullen Rajkumar.
Super. Do you want me to answer this really quickly, or do you want to jump into the panel first?
Yeah, let it finish.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you for keeping me on time. I always need a handler. For those of you who've ever presented with me or ever worked with me, I appreciate this. So keep me on track, keep me on point, and keep me on time. I'll answer this quickly though. There's an organization, and they're always asking for donations outside of stores, and they're everywhere. And if you look at where their money goes toward, a lot of their money goes toward lobbying against certain social causes that may be against certain people's values. And most people have no idea. They think they're feeding the homeless. They think the money's going toward, all these different things, but in reality, the money is going over there. So I think it's very important to be very clear that there is value being exchanged between point A and point B. So if I am giving you money for something, I expect something in exchange. And if you tell me that I'm giving you this, whether it's for a charity or some kind of social endeavor, that the money that I'm putting in, it goes exactly where you say it's going. Because this is where I see some of the challenges around why people might think of, a bad connection between profits and social causes. We've always got to be on the up and up. We always have to be honest and open about, we're taking this in, here's what you're getting in exchange, and here's where that money is going. Okay, I hope that's helpful. But I think there are many countries around the world where it is against the cultural norm or the religious norm to talk about the good you're doing in the world, and that you should keep it quiet, because if you talk about it, it takes away the good deed. And so I think it's really hard to please everyone everywhere. And sometimes culture and norms get in the way of everything. And sometimes they're helpful and sometimes they're not helpful, especially when it comes to coming together as a global world. But nobody's ever going to always be right. You're never going to please everyone. And sometimes you just wake up in the morning, you do your best, you fight the good cause, and you know that you sleep good at night because you're out making the world a better place in a capacity that you can and that you know best. And if you fail, admit it, correct it, and move on. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
I see a few, at least two Q&As and 3 chats. We don't have time to get to them, but if the organizers can capture those, we'll try to address those questions during the course of the morning. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I answered one of them, and then the other one was a comment. So I think we're good. There's one about financial confidence. I can answer that through the chat.
Thank you, Dr. Sassy, for the insights. For our viewers joining us online, we'll take a quick 5 minutes break to arrange ourselves for the panel discussion. So please tune in.
And we'll say to grab a cup of coffee in the morning.
So we have a break. We have a 5-minute break.
Yes.
During a break, another 20 minutes break is there in between.
So we are now moving ahead for our panel discussion.
I'm okay. Here some flow is coming. It frees you to get there.
Are you good to go? Yes. Is everyone back?
Maybe I will give the chair. Somewhere some glow is coming here. There I was very comfortable. Would like to sit here, then I will. Huh? Yeah, please come. You are better attired. Right.
Melissa, can we go ahead?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second and I will turn my camera back on, but I'm here.
Okay. Melissa, it's going to be a panel discussion where Mr. Mendu, Dr. Pradeep, and Dr. Narayanan are here along with you. So
Awesome. All the doctors are in the house.
yeah. So it is going to be a question and answer kind of thing. Each question will last about 3 to 4 minutes, and it's going to be about UNSDGs and about the implementation part. So you can connect with your stories. So yeah, let's go ahead. I think we are charged up with the event and keynote session by you. So all the questions are going to be on UNSDGs, and we are going to have different. I mean, this is the UNSDG event, so we want to focus on certain SDG goals to each speaker, and the session. I mean, it's all about the discussion. It's all about what they have learned and what they want to share. Hey, madam. I mean, you've been in the field, and your experience shows a lot more stories about microfinancing and livelihood. So, I want to ask you a specific question about goal 1, which is no poverty, and it's all about how can we improve the standard of living by offering alternative livelihoods to entrepreneurs? So what was your story about it?
Great. Thanks, Raj. Greetings to everyone. Actually, this connects directly to the first goal of the UNSDGs, that is the poverty, no poverty, that's where it is. So if we just start from some statistics which actually give some insights for us that where does we stand globally and then at our nation level also, that you may be knowing that around 109 countries, 1.29, almost 1.3 billion population are in poverty. 86% people are actually living in rural, and half of the population are actually less than 18-year-old children are actually in poverty. So these are basic things which I just wanted to highlight it. And then the poverty things, actually how we are defining as per the UN SDG standards are actually that the health, education, and the living conditions, what actually there's 10 parameters altogether are putting that. Fine. Now coming into my expertise area, where I actually work largely in agriculture and then rural transformation initiatives. So if you look at that in Indian context, in agriculture again, we have a serious issue. Out of the 11 crore farmers population in India, 2/3 are actually still, they don't get sufficient enough money to meet their livelihood. That's a big problem what we see in our agriculture space. And also the monthly income also, it's very less, somewhere about 6,500 rupees per month. That is, which is very low for them to keep sustaining their family and their needs about it. So these are some of the pressing issues. Even I would like to add a few more points also, that if you look at that, 56% of the rural households have no land. Although we speak about agriculture because they are landless. So again, this is a big challenge that what we have, that how do we reach out with the solutions to meet their livelihood and then to continue the income generating activities. And again, 12.7% people get from regular work, some kind of a salary kind of thing from the rural folks, what we are talking about. But out of this, again, 49.6% do not have any social security benefits. So these are again the kind of challenges that entrepreneurs have to look at and then find a ways that how we can do it. And again, it comes to that, if you look at the rural workspace, the women workers who are actually 95% of the women workers in the informal sector have been exposed to the risks related to abuse and then sexual harassment at workplaces. These are again the biggest challenges, that the dignity of the work, what they continue on the ground, and then how they can feel good, comfort to earn some livelihood for them also. These are somewhat certain points. And again, if it comes to the skill part, the formal skill part of the sector, India is very low with just only 4%. And then, when we compare with other countries like South Korea is 96% and China is 24% and also. Then my experience again, as you asked, Raj, agriculture, the need is that to change the farmers from being a farmer to agripreneur. A smart agriculture is one of the need of the hour. And as well as that, the government of India recent initiatives, when we look at the farmer producer organizations, which are farmer institutions, has to be transformed into the smart farmer enterprises. Because the entrepreneurial thing actually gives various kind of opportunities. If you look at the agriculture sector across the value chain, there are various components like agri inputs, irrigation, smart irrigation related, farm mechanization part, financial services, risk mitigation services, which includes insurance innovative products and as well, and also digitization of the transactions and then the profile of the farmers and farmer institutions, and output market linkages, and you name it, about the post-harvest storage solutions, and then processing, branding, compliances, import, export, many things are there actually. So these all provides great opportunities for the individuals and institutions to find the solutions through entrepreneurial approach. So these are my few points to add up.
Thanks for the insight, Dr. Pradeep. You've been working in the field of healthcare, and then you have done a lot of groundwork, and you have driven a lot of things while being a student, as a doctor, and as academia. You have seen a lot of challenges and you have overcome it. I would like to focus on asking about one specific question: good health and well-being, which is a goal number 3. What innovations or innovative mindset does one need to build affordable healthcare solutions via medical innovations?
Good morning to all of you. Yeah, first of all, just an apology. I have a little bit of laryngitis, so I don't know whether my sound is very clear. Is it audible now? Yes, thank you. See, when you say sustainable development goals, I think as far as I'm concerned, it's a little bit of a primitive concept. Because 30 years ago, when I was a student, I had thought about it as a medical student. So when I completed it, this is what I told Rajkumar when I met him yesterday, that you want to speak on it. I'm not speaking anything that is given in internet or which is given by global units. I'm speaking to you something which I have done on ground. Okay. So 9 out of 10 children who are born in this country are born in an area where you don't have expertise cardiac surgery. 9 out of 10. So you just imagine what is the volume of this condition. And Melissa was speaking about social entrepreneurship, and Narayan sir and one of you was asking a question between profit and social entrepreneurship. See, at that point of time, I have not read anything on MBA. I don't know anything of management skill, but I had a good idea in my heart that we should give free cardiac surgery in a village. Okay. So the team which I got associated with was Sassy Institute in Puttaparthi. And they immediately had supported this idea, and we came out with super specialty hospital. And you have architectural engineers here. So we thought we'll have a sustainable campus with what you say as sustainable development goals. See, these ideas we had as students, as medical students. So when we completed it, I finished my graduation, and first thing we did was that we set this up. So how do you go for the finance? Where is the money coming from? So we sat together and we calculated as to how much money should be given to the staff. What would be the cost of a few procedures? And this was collected as a capital placed in the bank, and the interest was used to pay out the staff members. And the hospital now is over 30 years. It's running fully well. Now, it's a village. From where are you going to get the people to come and work there? So we have national institutes. AIMS is there, Sri Chitra is there, Nissan's is there. So we are requested for help. Okay, Professor Venugopal, I think you should know him. He is the first person who did the cardiac transplant. He immediately volunteered. So a team from AIMS used to come there. Team from Nissan's used to come there. So I got an opportunity to work with the best people in the world. And after a few months, we thought, why limit ourselves to locally? So we thought we'll go for an international collaboration. See, people with good hearts were there. They came. They came and worked for a few months. So we could do free cardiac surgeries for the first time in the world in a village. In a village. So like what you said, it is social entrepreneurship of the highest order. It is a sustainable goal on health of the highest order. So this is something which we have done. And we picked up students. It is a deemed university. Satyasai Institute of Higher Learning is a deemed university like Geeta. So we picked up MBA guys. We trained them up. We sent them to Medtronic schools. We gave them a degree. So they became hospital managers. They used to do the cardiopulmonary bypass machine running also, fully qualified. We selected the girls from BSc, MSc. We trained them up for ICU care. We trained people to do echocardiography. So it is like your AI learning only. Some images you have to interpret. So we can train them up. So local skilling. So the local people were trained. So the people whom we know were ready to work there, we trained them up. We took them to AIMS. We trained them up. We placed them back there. In 2 years, we had a local center managing the whole show. Now, extending it to across the country, another thing came up in Bangalore, but obviously it's not a rural setup. So from there, we actually went, the same model was picked up by KM Cherian, and we started in Parimala. And it was actually one of my senior colleagues who was helping out in those places also. So this is how you can actually go with this thing into practical point on that.
That was really inspiring and very interesting.
And the timing which we have done is 30 years ago. 30 years ago, before any global body suggested a sustainable development program.
Our generation has a lot to learn from you. So way forward, we'll look into it and we'll make more things. Dr. Narayanan, so you've been like done a lot of research in the field of food and fortification. So I would like to focus on one goal, zero hunger. So how entrepreneurially one can work in agriculture towards zero hunger through food and fortification?
Good question. But before I address that question, I will quickly share my thoughts on what Dr. Deep said about charity and the question that came up earlier. I don't think making profits is anathema to social entrepreneurship. Somebody has to make profit if you have to even give it as charity. So as long as the profits are made using fair means and legal means, and you create a value, and if that profit is a share of that value that you get, I don't think anything wrong.
See, I think he has echoed what Sassy used to say in management meetings. He was the previous election commissioner for the country. He says management should look into dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So as long as your business is in terms with the dharma and moksha principles, which you bring it in, there is absolutely nothing. It is not profit at all. It is a social commitment.
Actually, thank you for
another
nudging
important
me.
word is
But
prosperity.
let me just come to the question that you asked. Agriculture is the primary vocation, and it has to produce food. And you can live without many other things, but people cannot live without food. So hunger can be many shades of it is there. The calorie insufficiency, which is the obvious hunger that people see. There can be hidden hunger where you don't have enough nutrition. So production of adequate amounts of food, creating access to the food, and creating the right combination of food which gives you a balanced diet. These are all very, very important to address the specific goal of no hunger. For example, no hunger is a motherhood kind of statement. It has so many components. It could be lack of purchasing power. It could be lack of production locally. See, actually, the world is facing a very tragic paradox today. You have sufficient food being produced, but on the other side, you have significant number of people going hungry, whether the obvious hunger or the hidden hunger. And this needs to be bridged. Wastages have to be prevented. If you can on-farm wastage and on-the-plate wastage. There are many, many issues. I can go on for the whole day, but I think this would suffice for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. So it was like, my question, I really want to refine the question again.
Please.
How do you want to connect through entrepreneurial journey on this aspect?
Well, I have a talk coming up in a short while.
Sure.
Where I'm going to talk about how do you get zero hunger through ag entrepreneurship. So I think you will probably find some of the answers to your question in that.
Sure, sir. Sure. We are waiting for your session.
Sure.
Dr. Sassy, this question is for you. And this question was specifically pointing to the goal number 4, quality education. So how and which kind of innovations from academia will propel positively and contribute to UNSDG? Further, how should universities view their curriculum and beyond curriculum activities to nudge students towards developing sustainable innovations?
So just to make sure that I heard the question right, we're going to look at, the question was regarding academia and the tie to solving SDG number 4. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. So I'm very passionate, as I mentioned, about quality education. And what I'd like to do first is I'd like to just quickly share my screen if I can. Can you open that up for me? I just want to level set one thing of what quality education means for those who may not be familiar. Is that okay?
Yeah, it is okay, Melissa.
Okay, cool. I just need to get the sharing rights again. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay, good. So I'm going to just share. Let me just go here. Let me move this out of the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Global Goals first, globalgoals.org. And that was the website that I mentioned when I presented. So for me, this is my favorite website to understand what the goals are. And I think, you know, the first thing we've got to do as academics, as anyone, you know, whether you're an academic, a student, you know, and I believe we're all students, we're all lifelong learners, is let's click on quality education and let's make sure we all understand what that means, because we're not going to be able to go out and teach anything unless we really are in the know around what does it mean to provide quality education. And, you know, if you look here, it's all about ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. And then if you dig deeper into this, you can see that it's all about imagination and it's about opening the world of possibilities. All right. And if you dig deeper down in here, you can see, let's go down here, which is where I want to go, the targets. So free primary and secondary education. You know, one of the things that I do as an academic is give forward in other communities beyond my own. Because, for example, you know, in my community, you know, free primary and secondary education is pretty universal. However, I have spent a lot of time in Pakistan, your neighbor. And we won't get into politics today, but I am on the board of a Pakistani nonprofit that focuses on educating out of school youth. And I share my skills forward with a group of Pakistani doctors who have created a learning platform for out of school youth. I'm not sure if you're aware, but 10% of the 250 million people, the 250 million school children who are outside of the school system live in Pakistan. And, you know, for me, I looked at where can I make a big impact? What can I do? And I thought, this is a cause I can get behind. Education is important. 10% of the out of school youth are located in one country. Who's running a wonderful NGO where I could support, provide connections, provide funding, and, you know, help to elevate their voice when it comes to the UN. So that's one thing that I've done. And I've always encouraged everyone around me to think about what is that NGO in your local community, that startup that's actually solving that problem now, and encouraging those around me to give forward and enabling others to recognize that giving forward and volunteering is something you can put on your CV. And it's kind of a risk-free way to get experience and to make a big impact. I would say another area is looking at what are my own skill sets and saying, how can I volunteer for guest lectures like I've done today to share my skills forward when it comes to higher education, enabling people from all over the world to gain access to the things that I've experienced and I know about. All right. I also think about, you know, when I look at financial success, I have a startup that I work with that provides financial literacy to youth. I help them think about how they can attract more youth. I open up my IBM blogging platform for them to talk about how do you gain access to financial independence? How do you become financially literate? And I work with that startup called Beat Club that provides financial literacy to music makers. All right. So I think first off, it's looking at these targets, understanding what they are.
Dr.
I'm showing them on my screen and making them real in your own community, in your own world, and the people you're able to influence. I hope that answered the question, and I hope that was okay.
Yes. Dr. Sassy, one more question for you. I mean, you have seen there are a lot of development goals that has been framed from UN, and all the countries have agreed upon certain common development goals which started earlier with Millennium Development Goals. Then there is a little course correction to it. Then there has a Sustainable Development Goals. Do you see any sort of course correction for the existing, present Sustainable Development Goals in the area of in your area of focus, that is education, quality education?
Can you repeat the last part of the question? And I'm sorry, the room just is a bit echoey, and I'm sure it's my computer, so I apologize.
Yeah. So, are you looking for any course correction in the areas of quality education in terms of Sustainable Development Goals?
I'll tell you what, when it comes to the connection between the UN Sustainable Development Goals and quality education and all of I believe that quality education is, frankly speaking, the most important goal. And I think quality education influences all the other goals. Why do I say that? If you don't have a foundation of knowledge and you don't have a foundation of subject matter expertise and learning, how can you impact anything else? If you don't have access to information, where are you going to go? You're not going to understand your subject matter expertise. You're not going to understand the data. You're not going to understand anything that you're trying to do. And you're also not going to be able to really work with others in an informed fashion because you don't have the right access to information and education. That's my perspective. Obviously, as a woman in tech, I think it's important that we have gender inclusion and all these other things, but, without access to a quality education, we can't read, we can't write, we don't know how to use the tools in front of us to be able to make a difference. So I think that's the most critical and basic thing. That said, obviously, if you don't have water, if you don't have food, if you don't have a place to live, the last thing you're thinking about is, okay, I'm going to go out and get an education. And that's why we have some of the challenges that we have in the world, when it comes to, I reflect on some of the work that I've done in many countries around the world where you see child labor. Right. And why do you see that? In some cases, not all, they haven't met those basic needs. So again, I think it's definitely a hierarchy, but I think quality education, drives all of these things.
Got it, Sassy. So, Dr. Narayana, if the same question was asked you in terms of zero hunger, what sort of course correction is required in the existing Sustainable Development Goals?
I think rather than thinking about course correction, I think the existing programs need to be prosecuted with more sincerity and more vigor.
Okay.
And obviously, course correction or the flexibility has to be built into the program, because as you go along, what you see and what you get and what you experience will tell you what kind of course correction you need to do. But there are so many programs increasing productivity, reducing micronutrient deficiency, fortifying food, genetically enhancing them so that they become more nutritious, making it accessible to people. All these programs need to be implemented. And I think as far as at least India is concerned, and that's where I think we will get most of the objectives achieved. And as we go along, I am sure there has to be some tweaking of the methods. And as the problem gets solved more and more, I think it may throw up additional challenges. And you need to be open to tweaking these the course. So course correction is part of any project.
Can I make one quick comment that I think just sparked when I heard the last panelist, and his intervention? Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead, Melissa.
All right, super. I just wanted to say that I think a lot of times, when it comes to course correction, and the SDGs, a lot of us fail to kind of look at the SDGs in our own lives and our own communities, and they seem so big and wicked, no poverty. That just is big. Like, how do you as an individual look at that and say, I'm going to go do this thing, and that's why in my presentation, I spoke about, think about your own life, your own community, your own family, your own friend group, and something that's right there accessible to you. And if everybody looked at that one thing that's accessible to them and solve that one thing that's accessible to them, it would have this magnificent ripple effect. But we all get caught up in these big UN words that are worldwide and around the world. And it's so hard to think, how am I individually going to make a difference? So again, figure out what your cause is, who's solving that problem already. Reach out to that person, reach out to that NGO, that nonprofit, that startup, and say, hey, you know what? I'm good at project management, or I'm good at marketing, or I'm good at content development. Can I volunteer with you for, 2 hours a week, 10 hours a month, whatever you can do? How can you also make a difference in your own home? These are the things that you can do in your own lives right now. So I think that's the first thing. That's the course correction that we need to make. And that's bubbling it down to the individual instead of it being so big. And then the second thing is we need better data to track all of the individuals who are making interventions every single day, so that individuals can see that their own individual impact is making a difference at these bigger, wider goals. I don't know how we gain access to all this data. It's got to be crowdsourced. It's got to be in a platform. It's got to be somewhere. But right now, it's all over the place. The data's messy. And unless you've got good quality data and you've got insights from people who are driving things on the ground, you're going to end up everywhere and nowhere. Thank you.
Dr. Kavi, if I put you the same question in terms of course correction, in terms of good health and well-being, how do you put forward?
Okay, I would start from where Sassy left. One is quality education. So how do you define quality education as far as sustainable goals in health is concerned? So you should bring in, like what Krish was telling just today morning, that you have to put in science and technology innovation in that. So from a remembrance level 1 teaching, entirely the universities and schools have to shift to concept applications. That is what is very well known. I'm sure educational policy people or your management people would have read, that is called as an innovative pedagogy. So it should come. And like what Melissa was telling, where do I start applying it? So I started applying it in my own hometown. See, like what she said, you have one person applying it in everybody's hometown, then the world will take care of itself. You have to focus on smaller things in life. Bigger things will take care of itself. So what I started was Kerala has 100% literacy. So the government is sitting relaxed. Oh, we have 100% literacy, nothing more to be done. No. What is to be done is that every child should start thinking scientifically. What you have lacked in your school education is you are not doing scientific experiments. Am I right? That concept has gone. So what we did is we purchased research kits, small experimental kits, distributed it free from LKG schools. It used to be carried to the houses, and one teacher used to go on Zoom and teach the parents how to do it, and the parents will show it at home. The same thing is being done from 1st class to 5th class like that. And now for vacations, they are taught in a simple way as to how to do research. Research methodology is taught. So by the time you come to universities, you know what a research is. So the student is well versed with research concepts. You have clay modeling, you have dance classes, isn't it? Same thing you can do. You can teach these children small research techniques with small toys. Only thing is that it has to come into a graphic concept. See, the sustainable development goals, I'm sure if you leave the class, you won't even remember all these 17. It's difficult. But if I can summarize the whole thing to you, see, if I have a 3-year-old child, how will I teach her what is this sustainable development goal in health? How will I teach her? So you have a mother who has delivered you. So the entire pregnancy has to be safe. Your delivery has to be safe. It has to be done in a well taken care of center. You are immunized against all kind of communicable or preventable diseases. You grow up in a good, safe, protected environment without substance abuse in an environment which is not polluted. And you are taken care of against non-communicable diseases. Road traffic accidents are preferred. We have asked school children to get involved in traffic control so that they know what is. So nobody will go because he is a school student, he will not drive at 120 kilometers per hour because as a student, he is standing there and controlling the traffic. And audition, you just imagine policeman standing at a place controlling it, he is exposed to all this honking. See, IMA Trivandrum has started a no honk day on 26th April. So sound pollution, see, these are small things which we can do and we have already done. And UN and WHO has come in now only. So that is one thing which we can start it at our own hometown, at our own level. Universities should serve as research pools for all these centers. All these R&D centers should get connected. The policy makers should include innovations, and like what Krish was telling, scalability is the issue. You identify a vulnerable group, you bring in the technology corresponding it to scale up this thing, innovate it, and then for scaling up, you need finances. Right. So we have a lot of countries, sir has worked in all these African countries. So you have shallow financing in this area. So we have to get in World Bank.
Dr.
Yeah.
Well said. It was well.
No, this is what we have already done.
Right.
I am speaking to you out of experience, not out of theoretical things which can take up. Students should take it up. That is what I feel. See, Geetam has got a big campus with so much of faculty and students. Each student can contribute. If you know that these concepts are there, you should get it. That's where I want, personal involvement at your own level in whatever way you can do it. If you start it, it's a huge thing.
Right. Mendu, if the same thing, same perspective, but in a different development goal. So how do you look at in terms of no poverty? I mean, is there any course correction required in that aspect?
Yeah, yes, Raj. As already Narayan sir mentioned that, what I feel is that it's more important against the policies and implementation process. It's all about the awareness creation about the policies and also developing a mechanism to implement those policies effectively on the ground. So there, a lot of gaps are happening. And also that the policies, if you look at that one side, we have all these goals are there and then the governments have given commitments. But at the same time, like subsidies, for example. So a lot of policies are even driven through the subsidies where there is no accountability or there is no quality of the output is ensured. So that has to be a core correction where that this can be an incentive driven based. So instead of the subsidies kind of thing. So this is one area where somebody can understand that. And second thing is that the Digital India initiative, actually that's a big power for the country like India, where we are too diversified and then the large number of population across the country. So largely we are just restrained into just having some banking transactions or some accounts kind of thing only, or even you can say that online ticket bookings or something like that. But what I feel is that it has to become a policy initiative that every village has to have a digital information which has to be published online. And everybody has to have access that if a student, if you want to do something on your own village or your friend's village, where you are aware that there are some problems are there, then you should be having access to information. Similar way for the people representatives, policymakers and government administrative people, everybody has to have access to that. I think India has to move in that direction very quickly so that the concept of the digital India will be a real reality, and then the village development is actually going to take place. And moreover, the people, planet, prosperity, this has to be an approach, and everybody has to have a consensus on this. In fact, this guy, gentleman asked about the profit point. So the question is that it's not, that's very valid, because many people feel like sin, to talk about profits, because if I want to make profit, I have to exploit you. That's what's happening on the ground. So we need to change that conceptual understanding that from looking at only profit and to create prosperity. So while you create prosperity, you bring all stakeholders, you actually generate wealth and then actually distribute that among them in proportionate to their contributions, so that there is a justice and transparency. So the challenge is that how do we actually make everybody to understand this? So one has to have a lot of consensus and awareness to be created on those parameters. That's where the quality human resources comes actually in place. That again, we need to find out individual passion, then you need to figure it out the purpose, and you have to practice. Then it results in performance, which is actually an impact. What Krish was mentioning about the scale. If you don't have to measure something at scale, there is nothing that actually we can talk about it. So I think these are the areas, and the 17 goal actually it summarizes everything. If you look at that, the collaborations, partnerships for prosperity. Again, I used to say in that way only. So the credible collaborations makes all the difference. That it's not just you actually go and then find it, sign an MOU, and then you forget about it. And also that commitment has to come. And policies in India, we are very good at making policies. The biggest problem in India is that execution of the policy. We don't have the resources enough to implement those things. This is one area, again, we need to have sensitized that we have to keep asking the people, you made a policy, but this policy is not being implemented on ground. So that's where we actually need to come out that identifying the gaps and then keep asking.
Like everyone, every speaker has limited to the point, and you have rightly focused on the problem areas and where we have to focus as a student and as academia. Would like to have one question from the audience. Is there any question from for the speakers? Yeah. You can use the mic. Just
Keep pressing it.
I'm Professor Mohan, Director of School of Architecture. We have what I'm interested in is there's an interconnection between all these sustainable development goals. And for example, we are more interested as architects in sustainable cities and communities where goal 11, then quality education goal 4, then climate action. So because global warming is concerned with that, and life on land and life below water. These are the goals which we focused on. Now, when you're talking about sustainable cities and communities, suppose we talk about transportation. So, transportation again is connected to climate action because vehicular pollution and all this again changing air quality. So, China has tried an experiment on sustainable transportation by using something called bike sharing. So there are some big players who have introduced these bikes which have a microchip in them. So a person can go and take the bike.
What was the question?
My question is this experiment which China did, like it is very good when you talk about reducing pollution through bike sharing, which is a sustainable transportation initiative. But the result was that there are so many business people who came into the picture. They created a lot of different models of bikes, and every Chinese person had a bike, and in the end they started dumping the bikes wherever. And there was something called graveyard, like graveyard. So now when you're trying to show the problems, when you're trying to achieve one goal, some other goal gets.
So that's a point where the convergence is also very much required, and then actually there should be a connecting point. So like a secretariat, so where different ideas can be connected. So these all are not individuals actually. Every goal is connected, interlinked, as you mentioned that.
So in
can
fact,
be worked out. That
health will come in the center. You improve any of the life conditions, environment, everything, health gets the benefit. The same way architecture also, it so many. In fact, bike I was writing to VC that to bring that in Geethams. I found it in IIT Chennai. It's a very good concept as far as
Let's break out for high tea. So whoever has questions, you can interact with all the panelists and the high tea. Yeah, we can all interact in the high tea breakout.
No, yes, yes. Asked, we'll just see whether
there's a time limit. See, we are under the tyranny of the clock. So I think we can't. And there are people joining from outside.
15 minutes back, we'll assemble back here. We'll continue with Narayan's session. The session is on food and fortification.
Very interesting.
I don't want the young student there discouraged. Please bring your question to the P session when you're there. Please ask the question there.
And they are not discouraged. So it's a simple question. As you mentioned, in India, we somehow feel we are talking about money. How do all of it, this is a question to all the panelists, how do all of you individually view the concept of money as?
We can answer that during the break.
Yeah, we can answer it in the break.
Thank you.
Should I put my laptop here?
Yeah.
Dr. Sassy, I hope you had an announcement. So
Yeah, do you want me to go ahead and do the announcement now?
Yeah, please. Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, super. Do you want to take the stop sharing your screen so that I can see the room? Is that okay? No, it's right now the UNSDG screen is showing, but I think if you could stop sharing the screen so I can see the room and you can see me, that would be super. I think it's Vikas, your screen is showing. Ah, super. Okay. So thank you very much for having me today. I've included a lot of links in the chat window, and your organizers will make sure that for those of you who are attending live and for those of you who are attending virtually, hopefully you'll get a curated list of this. But what I wanted to say is I will be getting a list of the names of everyone who's attended today, and each of you will be getting a certificate of participation. It'll be signed by me, and it'll also be branded with IBM as well as our organizing bodies. So thank you very much for having me. Look out for that electronic certificate, and hopefully all of you will share it in social media. I've included my social media handles in the chat window, and I'm sure for those of you who are attending live, you'll get that later. But feel free to send me a LinkedIn request so we can stay connected. Don't forget, when you're sending anybody a LinkedIn request, include a personal note. Tie it to how you know that person, including me, so that I don't accidentally not accept you. I've also included my Twitter handle, so thank you for having me. I always enjoy doing guest lectures. Hopefully you learned a lot. Hopefully you found it insightful and interesting and meaningful, and hopefully you've taken away some thoughts and ideas that will help you think about how do you take your social entrepreneurship journey forward. So thank you again for having me. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Sassy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, what time are we coming back?
Yeah, 12 o'clock.
Here in the Millennium Sustainable Development Goals. And the 17th goal is about partnership to achieve the other 16 goals. The second goal is on no hunger. Now, like I said before, it's a motherhood kind of statement. You can slice it into different pieces. It could be accessibility to food. It could be stocks of food. It could be political reasons. But like I said before, there is this huge paradox, a tragic paradox actually in this world where on the one side we are producing enough food, on the other side we are having hungers of various dimensions, of various colors. It could be obvious calorie deficiency, or it could be hidden hunger. In India, we have been quite successful since the time of independence in solving or addressing the issue of obvious hunger or the calorie malnutrition. You don't hear about people dying because of starvation that often. When we, in 1947, when we got our independence, we had just come out of a very tragic famine in 1943, not too far away from here. If you travel a little bit northeast from here, in the streets of Calcutta, hundreds of thousands of people died. Total casualty figure, you have various numbers, but it's around 3 million people died for want of basic food. It was because of the failure of the rice crop due to a disease called brown spot caused by Helminthosporium oryzae, but compounded by the policies, the colonial policies at that time. So whatever stocks were available in the rest of the country which could have been mobilized to address this issue in that place was actually siphoned away to create a buffer stocks for from soldiers fighting in the Second World War. That wouldn't have happened in a democratic country like India, but then those days it was different. So the impact of some of these actions on hunger and hunger alleviation is what I wanted to highlight by citing that incident. So when you talk about zero hunger world, obviously you need to have the stocks to actually feed the world. You need to provide access for people to access the stocks so that they can address their hunger issues. You need to create the right mix of stocks so that the nutritional requirements can be addressed or effectively addressed. So many issues are there. So zero hunger, like I said, is a motherhood kind of statement. Under that, you can actually list out a number of challenges or number of problems. So this morning, Kish mentioned that an entrepreneur is somebody who solves problems. So when you have so many problems or so many challenges, the other side of the coin is the opportunity or solutions. And that affords a number of entrepreneurial opportunities. And this is what I'm going to share with you in the next 20-25 minutes or so. Okay? And if you're all with me on that, let me start by looking at some of the trends that we have in agriculture. While I may be now and then referring to global scenarios, I will be mostly rooting my talk to the situations obtained in this country and this geography. Okay? So let's look at the different trends. The first trend is increasing demand. The demand for food is increasing. There are many reasons for it. The number of mouths are increasing. World population today is 7.5 billion. Here is a cartoon which depicts that. And the population is growing. So you need Indian population is growing at about 2%, whereas the food production is growing at only 1.4 or 1.5%, most of the food grades. Now, depicted in a lighter way, and I want to give a different perspective to it. You look at the time between the time of Christ, when the population of the world was around, it is estimated, different estimates are there, 250 million or something, to actually 1950 or 1970, no, the population grew to about 5 million. Today, the world population is about 7.5 billion or 750 crores. India accounts for 1/5 of all that population. So don't be surprised when you all, after your degrees, if some of you get a chance to go abroad, every fifth person you see may be an Indian. So that is, don't have to be surprised about it, because every fifth person in the world is in India today. But look at the other alarming, the way at which it will increase. The next 75 years is enough to add the next 5 billion. So the world population is estimated by FAO and other agencies to be capped at about 10 billion to 12 billion. That's where the estimates are. And you need to feed them. That is one reason why the demand is increasing. The demand is also increasing because your food choices are getting different. You are all now more affluent than your fathers and grandfathers. So your choice of food is getting different. So there are many reasons for increasing demand. So if you are in the business of serving or solving some problem in agriculture, be rest assured that you will not have a problem of demand. Because if you want to run a business, there has to be a demand for which you can produce the supplies. And very importantly, I want you to focus on this particular train here. You have to meet this demand with decreasing resources of production. Water is getting, the water that can be used for agriculture is getting deficient. You look at the developments around you. Your city is growing, the land available for agriculture is diminishing. So with decreasing, more crops per drop, that's why you see these slogans, you need to produce more with less and less. So that's a challenge. And the challenge, the other side of the coin is, there's an opportunity for entrepreneurship there. So you can look at agricultural inputs. Agricultural inputs have served us well. There are technological innovations which will actually address the production constraints. So from the same limited resources, you can produce more. I'm taking an example of nitrogenous fertilizers here. This is a picture I took from one of the National Geographic magazines a few years ago. But what I want you to focus is this sentence. I don't know if you can see it, so I will actually read it for you. Nearly half the people on this planet wouldn't be alive if not for the abundant food made possible by nitrogenous fertilizer. Sometimes we forget the fact because today, because we have got enough food, like I mentioned earlier, we think there are additional problems that the nitrogen fertilizers are causing. They may be leaching into the water bodies and causing what is called eutrophication, algal growth. Fishes are dying. We need to address those issues. So today, when you think about entrepreneurial opportunities, how to solve the problem of hunger, you don't immediately think about chemical fertilizers, but you look at biological equivalents, which can be very nicely, compatibly combined with nitrogenous fertilizers so that what is called as integrated approaches, which are compatible. So there are many biological sources. We have got farmyard manure. But look at the problem. The farmyard manure has got on an average about 0.5% nitrogen. How much nitrogen does urea have? Available nitrogen? 46%. So just for easy understanding, let us make it 50%. So for 100 kg of nitrogen or 100 kg of urea equivalent nitrogen, okay, that is 2 bags of urea, 50-50 bags. How much of farmyard manure you have to apply? 10 tons. Okay, so if you have to apply 10 tons, you talk about the transportation, the cost of transportation, the labor. So while farmyard manure will provide something more than nitrogen, like microbes, for example, and the organic carbon, how do you mix and match it or produce some organic manure which will provide the advantages of farmyard manure or cow dung or whatever it is, at the same time can be compatibly combined with nitrogenous? I'm just giving you an high-level thinking on these ideas. You need to work out the details and make it convenient to apply. Okay, this is something that you can do. Let me move on. Growing urbanization is another trend. Gandhi institution, this institution is inspired by Gandhiji's values. So Gandhiji, in his time, he mentioned that India lives in its villages. That was true at that time. But today, do you know that more than 30% of the population in this country are in urban centers? And that flow is continuing because opportunities are more in urban centers. And many of the rural centers, which used to be rural centers earlier, are now becoming urban centers. There is an urbanization. So where land is going to be expensive, everything is expensive. So you need to have very specialized systems which can produce more and more out of those limited resources. So we talk about precision farming. There's a great opportunity. How many of you are engineering students? Electronics? Wonderful. Now you thought agriculture was only about agronomy and botany and seeds and stuff like that. Now here, there is a lot of, you can put sensors, when you talk about peri-urban precision farming, sensors, multi-tier cropping and stuff like that, hydroponics, aeroponics. Have you heard about those things? There are tremendous opportunities. There are already ventures which are out there. And of course, things have to be fine-tuned and you need to look at it differently because you have the advantage of whatever has happened earlier and whatever mistakes have been done and see how you can protect more and more of the urban population from going into hunger and other kind of situations, whether it's obvious hunger or hidden hunger. So this is an opportunity for entrepreneurship. Declining labor availability. So India is a populous country. I told you that 1/5 of all people living on this earth live in this country. But that doesn't mean that you have enough number of people to do the kind of jobs when it is required. Agriculture is generally a labor-intensive operation. Okay, just imagine this. I'm going to put almost 55% of all working people in this country are engaged in primary agriculture. So in food production. That means in some sense, agriculture is the largest private enterprise in this country, not the Tatas or the Birlas or Soulful or whatever it is. But unfortunately, every unit within that whole enterprise is very tiny. So that actually shows up many challenges which can be addressed through innovation. you need to make technologies which are scale neutral. In the sense that you can't have I will tell you when I go to that section, you can't have this large combined harvesters where you need hundreds or thousands of acres before it becomes really viable. You need to tinker it so that, it works in smaller areas. It is scale neutral. You know what is scale neutral? It works in small farms and equally works in big farms. Whereas some inputs, unless you have a minimum scale, it will not be profitable. So declining labor. So mechanization is going to be, how many of you are mechanical engineers? Okay, there you go. So is going to be a key for addressing the food production problem, because when timely labor is not available, mechanization will help the labor to be more productive. So there was a time when we used to talk about job-led growth. More jobs, more growth. But no longer, if you look at it very objectively, you don't have that many. You need to move away people from this drudgery of agriculture and other things into more productive jobs. And the existing people should still continue to produce more and enough for all the other population. So like I mentioned, you cannot have these big combined harvesters. You look at what our people have done. Have you traveled around Namakkal, Salem and all in Tamil Nadu? They mount a tractor on top, make a combined harvester, and that works very well. And they come around all these places also, wherever there is during the rice season. And see, that is the kind of innovations that we need. And also that drudgery, you have got optical sensors. It can sense a weed from a non-weed and then pluck out the weed specifically. Climate change, I think Melissa also talked about climate change, and climate action is one of the goals. Is it 13? I don't remember very well. But one of the goals is climate action and climate change. Climate change is a reality. The global temperatures are rising. If you look at the 1950 to 1980 average temperature data and compare it to what it is today, there is a 1 degree increase. Now, there is no debate about whether the globe is warming or not. Well, that's a fact because you can prove it with the data. The only debate is how much of it is contributed by human activity and how much of it is a natural cycle. The anthropogenic cause, how much? So Trump may believe that, it doesn't cause any human activity, has to be unrestrained, we have to do. But I think the general consensus is that our human activity has slightly increased the rate at which the globe is warming. Now, what are the impacts of that? You can have floods in one region, you can have drought in the other region. You had a cyclone recently in Vijayawada. Kerala, it has seen unprecedented floods. The southwest monsoon and the northeast monsoon, instead of having a break in between, they have been a continuum. And then I will not be surprised if the places which had floods in another 3 months, they will be facing drought. So we need to prepare agriculture and the crops for addressing some of these things. It should not lead to lack of stocks, which can lead to increase in hunger. And so you need to make crops climate resilient. There are ways of doing it. You can make rice more heat tolerant. And I'm not going to get down into the details. I'm just planting some high-level ideas in your mind. You can develop a rice, they're already done, which is tolerant to flooding, so that even after 6-7 days of standing water, when the water recedes, these are able to regenerate these varieties. Genetic enhancements have been accomplished. And these will be some of the ways in which you address this climate change issues. And let me take this specific example. It is very relevant to these regions in Andhra Pradesh. The pest dynamics are changing because the temperatures are different. This is an army worm, Spodoptera frugifera. That's the scientific name of it. Don't bother about it. This is a voracious pest which attacks many crops, but often it has never been a pest of corn. Many of you are from Guntur, East Godavari, West Godavari region. How many of you? Nobody. Oh, there's only 1%. Your place is actually a major center for corn production, particularly for Nuzivedu and other areas. The many seed companies produce seeds. They never faced this problem earlier, 5-6 years ago, but now this has become a major pest. Can you find solutions? Do you want to spray more and more of those chemicals which will have collateral damage with other things? or you want to look at biological solutions? I leave you with that question. That's a problem that you can sort out through entrepreneurship. Increasing value in the seed. Seed is the primary input in agriculture. Seed is a scale neutral input. Now, earlier days, in fact, for most crops, till very recently, till the advent of BT cotton, and I'll tell you why. The cost of seed and the total cost of cultivation was less than 5%, except for some crops like peanuts and other things where the seed rate is very high. But today, the value created by other inputs is being drawn into the seed. The seed is getting incorporated with those traits so that now the value of a pesticide is getting drawn into the seed. And what the farmer sees is there is convenience, there is effectiveness. Only when the pest infests, the collateral damage is not there. And that is why some of the technologies like BT cotton, for example, you see here, has become very popular. 95% of all cotton grown in this country is BT cotton. 1.5 million tons of vegetable oil that we consume is derived from the cotton seed. Did you know that? 1.5 million tons. Okay? And it is safer. And so we talked about profitability. There was earlier a discussion. Now, if you look at it in the perspective of creating value and sharing the value with your customers and yourself, then you don't feel that guilty. Now, we have the baggage of colonial times when most of the profits were made only through exploitation. That's a problem. We have to get out of that mindset. Profits, if made legally, if made ethically, and in consideration for creating a value, a share of that value is your income or your profit, I don't think there will be any mental dilemma in accepting that fact. And we need to be sure, because unless somebody makes profits, how are you going to get charity also? So if you want to really do charity, you should have your money in your pocket. You cannot be borrowing from somebody and it is not sustainable. Anyway, I don't want to dilate on that too much. So that is the reason the value of the pesticide is captured in the seed. So that is a trend which is growing. You now see that the value of the seed is going up to the farmers. But then that incremental value that is there in the seed is being more than compensated by the benefits or the returns that the farmer gets. And that is why more than 95% of all these cotton, even with all the activism and all these things, because farmers are straight thinking people. They see the benefit. They don't see the heavens falling down. They find that their people are not getting sick because of the exposure to pesticides. They will adopt it. And their yields are going up. Push to augment farm incomes. It is not enough to increase production. We have enough food, like I mentioned to you, enough food for everybody in this world, certainly for everybody in the country. In fact, the problem is our country is stocking more food grains than what is necessary. And that's why, you find these go downs, the food grains get spoiled and stuff like that. So the important thing is not to just increase production or productivity, to make sure that the farmer earns more income through that productivity. And I firmly believe that this is a FAO map. You can see that the average economic productivity of the places in red is less than $500. It's very meager. Like I think my friend mentioned that 6,500 rupees is the average income of a farm family. How do you expect to live? A watchman will earn much more. A man with 4 or 5 acres will not earn as much as a watchman. And that's why, I don't know, many of you girls and other people, this question sometimes to provoke, I ask, how many of you are willing to marry a farmer? And you will find, even if he has got a job in a lower level management and something, that's more attractive. So this is the mindset, and we need to change that. You just think about our country. 55% of all working people engaged in primary production, in farming. What is the GDP contribution of agriculture to Indian agriculture? 13%. So if you are a hotelier, or if you are in the service industry, or if you are in IT industry, or if you are in manufacturing, your productivity in terms of per capita GDP is way higher. That has to change. And how do you change that? In my view, if you keep on increasing primary production, that is not enough. You need to talk about secondary agriculture or value addition. Tremendous opportunities for entrepreneurship here. If farmers get more money, one way to alleviate this hunger problem is to create more income. You see, is there a hunger in many of the high income countries? No. Very rare due to some aberration, but otherwise, generally, you don't have so you need to increase the purchasing power, the farmer's income. One way is value addition, and that's where one of the companies that I brought in, like value adding of some of our native grains like ragi and other things. You can package it in a way which people like, because we are used to, the modern palate is used to pizzas and some things like that, breakfast cereals. You can make it convenient also. Husband and wife are, I told you, 35% in cities. So mostly the husband and wife are working, so they need convenience. So convenience food. You can make some use of some things that you burn away and create pollution in Delhi and other places. Can you make briquettes, which can be energy source, bioenergy, bioplastics? Many, many options are there. I put this sugarcane picture here just to mention to you that I actually mentor a company which is trying to produce a pharmaceutical product, glucose cerebrosidase, which causes the Gaucher syndrome. It's a rare disease. It's a genetic disorder. They have a deficiency of an enzyme. So sugarcane is a wonderful system. So, of course, conceptually, you can get a little romantic about it. You just squeeze the sugarcane and drink the sugarcane juice, you will be cured of the disease. It's not as simple as that. But you can keep thinking about some of these opportunities. Vaccines can be produced in many of the plant systems. So agriculture is not, now we have had enough food. Now let's not continue to increase the food production. Can you get more income? Can you get into the pharma area? So when I look at it, these are all cognate areas. They are not completely siloed areas like health is one, agriculture is one, and employment or education is one. They're all related. Let's move forward and go to the final one. So I find that how many of you come from agricultural backgrounds? Wonderful. Okay, I can raise my hand also. Some of you are studying engineering, some of you are into computer science. Agriculture is increasingly becoming a confluence of multiple technology domains. So if you are working with, let's say, artificial intelligence, that has a place in agriculture. When I talk about precision agriculture, you sense how much water is there in the soil, how much the plant is transpiring, and then activate a sensor or a pump, which is so IoT, Internet of Things, have a wonderful applications. In fact, I was just discussing with this guy called Chandra Hassan. Okay, he is right here. So he is trying to develop an app which will connect the farmer with the market and with the government policies. Simple idea, but there are many complications when you do that. Wonderful, wonderful thought. So there are tremendous opportunities. So how will I help hunger? You have to go many levels beyond that. The cascading effect of that is ultimately you will get more people who are more prosperous, who have more production, more stock, and you are addressing the issue of hunger globally. Yes. And new technologies are coming in, like gene editing, for example. So I don't have to describe more. There are tremendous opportunities. You see these companies which have raised hundreds of millions of dollars for the promise of this technology in agriculture. Okay. RNAi is another opportunity. So I can delve deep into those technologies. But when I was discussing with some of your friends here as to what they wanted me to also share my experience, entrepreneurial journey, looks like I don't have the time for that. But I will actually go to the slide where I talk about, I can talk for a whole day about this particular slide itself, but I'm not getting there. I'll just talk about the major lessons that I have learned if you want to become an entrepreneur. How many of you have a doubt in your mind? Maybe I will become an entrepreneur. Okay, you surely, but you should make profits. Okay, don't mix up entrepreneurship with charity. Profits you make and then give that profits as charity to the people who deserve it. I think that's the way to do it. So some lessons for you in my own view. This is not exhaustive, but be flexible. Ends are more important than the means. Only two criteria when you talk about flexibility. The changes you make should be legal. The changes you make should be ethical. If these two conditions are met, then don't all keep on following the Excel sheet that you prepared when you made the business plan, even when you know that it is going to go wrong. Be clear about the goal, not about the means. Only inflexibility is with regard to legality, and you may not agree with the law, but you protest the law and follow the law. Okay? So that don't get into illegal means. So this should not deter you. Okay? Be prepared for failures. We have this stigma, if we fail, then that means you are out. I think that has to be now wiped out of this generation that we have here. You need to fail to succeed. And the most important thing is recovering from a failure is the key to success. If for fear of failure, you don't start doing something, I think you have really failed even before you started. So only when you write the exam, you will know whether you will get 33 and 1/3% or you will get 90%. So failure can be treated as a learning experience. You learn things and then you go forward. I think I'm getting towards the end. Hedge your bets, have alternate plans. This may sometimes sound counterintuitive to some people who keep talking about your core competence and stuff like that. In the Indian situation, it's important that you actually hedge your bets because unlike in some other geographies where the funders or the investors will be prepared to wait maybe 10 years, and then if your system fails for many reasons, not entirely reasons may not be under your control, then they won't fund you. That's not the situation here. Here, I think you need to have alternative plans, a backup plan. If this doesn't work, I think Melissa was talking about pivoting. So you should know where to pivot and when to pivot. And for that, it's very important to be looking at yourself from outside you. Because sometimes we get too possessive with the idea. We fail to see when we are failing. So that's important. Be careful in choosing a financial partner. That's very, very important. Don't take money from anywhere. The financial partner is as much interested in funding good projects as you are interested in getting a good financial. Or like we happen to can get lucky with some people. Many things don't happen by design. They sometimes happen through providence or luck or whatever you may want to call it. Okay? Very, very important. Believe in yourself. Have the self-confidence. And an entrepreneur, the most important quality is to believe in oneself. Because tomorrow you start a venture and then and if it doesn't work out for some reason, for some unfortunate reason, you cannot go around telling that, Narayan was there, I listened to his lecture, he said I should do this, and that's why I failed. You have to own up to your failure. Similarly, you have to own up to your success as well. So believe in yourself, and that's very, very important. I always say that potential entrepreneurs should have an open mind. You should listen to ideas from various people. But at the same time, don't have it so open that your brains fall out. You should be open enough to form your own convictions and you should act on your convictions. So last slide, the entrepreneurial journey. You may think you are starting here. This is the destination you want to reach. You have got the wherewithal, you have got the scientific skill. I'm a mechanical engineer, I know mechatronics. So that's represented by the cycle. And you keep on pedaling the cycle and you think you will reach the destination. But the actual journey, from my own experience, and that's depicted by the other half of this, is not going to be like this. As soon as you start, you suddenly realize that there is a hurdle. The cycle is of no avail. I studied mechanical engineering, sure. That is not the issue. The problem is some regulatory, some lawyer, legal issue that may have to be solved. So you need to learn new skills. Now you thought cycling, that should have been enough. Here you have to learn swimming. And then, but ultimately when the destination you are reaching is above where you started, I think that is a measure of success. So you should always enjoy the journey as much as the destination. That's very, very important. And so with this, I will close my talk. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the session is open for any questions.
I will try to answer them. I may not have answers for everything.
Sir, am I audible?
You are very much audible.
Yeah.
But you should make sure you're audible to the other people also.
Yeah.
Are listening to you in cyberspace. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, my exact question is, as you told that with the, okay.
No, you hold on because others may want to hear your question. No, if you are an entrepreneur, you wanted to become, you have to be multitasking. So you have to keep pressing while you're talking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, so I course of your presentation that you had that you have to change the and all that. So our role as youth to actually bring awareness on that future of this.
That's right. First be convinced yourself and be aware yourself. Farmers of today, they are also want to make profit. They want to send their children to universities like Gidam. They want to wear good clothes. They want to have a TV. They want to ride a bike and then slowly graduate. So it's not just city folks who wants to do that. So farmers are also aspirational. And for that, it is not enough if they produce enough for eating. That was the situation about 40, 50, 60 years ago, just when we came out of independence. We were producing 50 million tons. Today, we produce 300 million tons of food grains alone. And as I told. So how do you increase so you have to change the perception. We have this romantic perception of farmer through our poems and stuff like that. Simple man doesn't have any needs. They have as much needs as you have. So start with yourself and then spread it to others. Thank you. Any quick question? Yeah, please. Ask a question rather than keep pressing the button.
Sir, the question is, you have discussed about how farmers are, actually need to change. But the thing is, there are certain cultural changes that we are observing. For example, we have various foreign crops entering our country and we started cultivating it. When it comes to BT cotton, so it was a new seed that has developed, and we have seen an entire seed company which has destroyed states together, Maharashtra, Punjab, and parts of Andhra Pradesh.
Statement, because
Yes.
why I want to interrupt is because what you say is your perception.
Yeah.
It may not be the reality. 74% of all crops cultivated anywhere in the world, that's the average, are imported.
Yes.
Okay. So wheat was developed in the Fertile Crescent. That is where it originated. Many millennia ago, it came in here. Corn is a crop which actually originated. I told you about corn, which is grown in Elluru and other places.
Yes.
Originated in South America. I will answer your question. Now, there can be damages that is caused, but there are also benefits which are derived. Indian crops have crops which are developed in India. For example, mango, Mangifera indica. Its origin is India. It has gone out into other countries. Rice is a crop which originated in the Indo-China region. And then, so crops have been moving around like humans have been moving around out of Africa theory and all that stuff. Crops also have moved around. Now, your question about destroying, that means you are talking about, that's a wrong perception. We can discuss it offline because it may not get over in the short time that we have. But I want you to be aware that there is a counter point of view to what you are thinking, because from the statements I made. Let me move on to other questions because there's a shortage of time and I have to catch a flight. You can talk to me later.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I had a doubt regarding growing urbanization.
Sorry?
Growing urbanization.
Growing urbanization.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you had briefed us on a couple of factors earlier, such as increasing demand, growing urbanization, declining labor availability. So do you think the root cause of all this is growing urbanization? So do you think?
No, growing urbanization is inevitable. We saw how much of rural population had migrated into the urban centers during the COVID, early first phase lockdown. How many people were walking on the road and going to the rural areas? So it is everybody is aspirational. When they can't earn enough money through some profession, they would like to see their brethren. Today we want to emulate America. We want to emulate. So that is nothing wrong with it. So only thing is, if urbanization is done in a proper way, That urbanization means what? All the facilities are available in a certain way, in a limited way, with minimum damage to the environment. That is not a bad thing at all. In fact, we want to move. See, 55% of people engaged in agricultural primary production is too much. You look at any developed country, not more than 2 to 3% is involved, and they will produce, for example, United States, more than 10% of the GDP is contributed by 2-3% of farmers. Whereas here the ratio is inverted, 55% producing 13% GDP. Of course, at the time of independence, our farmer involvement, the GDP contribution of agriculture was close to 65-70%. But because of IT development, particularly after 1990, things have moved. And you all want to seek jobs. You are coming here, electronic engineer and all that. Do you want to go and till the farm? You want somebody to produce so that you can do much better things. I don't think that is better in that sense. But in the perception of people in terms of drudgery, in terms of earning capacity, there are many things that our country needs to have so that we can also develop. Okay? So it's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you don't take care of it, we can end up in problems. So it has to be managed properly.
Any
Yes.
questions from online? You should probably entertain a question from online.
I don't see the chat box. Yeah, you can quickly come on if it's a short question.
So the modified crops are more frequently used these days, right? So they are disrupting the food chain cycle.
They are not disrupting anything. From the very advent of agriculture, see, good that you asked this question. 2 things of crops have been changed to suit it for agriculture. Otherwise, it's a wild plant. The nature and the nurture. Nature is not the sea and the other things that you see here. When I say nature, is the nature of the organism. How tall I am, how active I am, how fat or angry I get, my disposition. This is nature. Nature of how much it will yield, how resistant it is to pest. That is the nature of a rice plant, for example. So nature is controlled by the genetic makeup. So man has been deliberately changing the nature of plants from the very advent of agriculture. The wild rices will shatter. You can't harvest. So the first selection, of course, he did it intuitively through experiential learning. Since Mendel proposed his laws of genetics, now we have a designed way of doing that. The second thing is nurture. We talk about nitrogen fertilizer. The forest, what happens? The tree grows or the plant grows. And when it dies, it falls there itself. So how does the plant grow or the biomass is built? Because it sucks up nutrients from soil. And when it dies and it decays there, it is recycled into the soil. Now, when you are cultivating a rice crop or a corn crop, part of the biomass, you are taking it away to some other place. You are bringing it to Visakhapatnam to consume. It is not still there in Guntur area where it is cultivated. So naturally, there's a depletion. So that has to be replenished. Okay, so it has been saying it's destroying nature and all is sometimes, I think, overdone or something like that. We need to look at a balance. So what we take out needs to be replenished. And when you look at that, I think, and at the same time, you cannot do away with agriculture. You cannot say the forest will not give you enough produce for so many million people. You saw if nitrogen fertilizer was not there, 50% of the population, no, only 50% will be here. But you don't want that situation, right? So it's all a question of balance. And that's where we miss the point. Oh, thank you.
At 12:45 is kind of little tough for everybody to manage. So, before much let me ask our students representatives, because this is a student activity, which we have actually made it happen. We would like all the speakers to felicitate. And may I request Yukta to felicitate Dr. K.K. Narayanan.
She's a budding entrepreneur. Yes. Thank you so much, Yukta. So nice. Thank you.
And may I request Mr. Ashish to felicitate Mr. Mendu. Good luck. I'll give you a hand. Thank you. And may I request Ms. Kathy to consider Dr. Pradeep? Thank you. And with that, please.
I would like to just take 1 minute of this whole thing. Narayan's father has been my guru also.
Yeah. It's also already.
Okay. I just like to take a moment to tell you this fact. We have become doctors like this because of this, like his father. And one point in that entrepreneurship side, he said your goal has to be legal and ethical. I'll tell you as a doctor what we faced. We were crazy about translational research. So we wanted to do the transplant in the country. We didn't have a law for it. Okay. So when you become entrepreneurs, keep this line in mind. When you are doing something groundbreaking, when you're doing something which nobody has thought of, we often forget this point. That one line which he has written from his own personal experience, even as doctors, we had to learn it the hard way. So we had to wait for this law to reach President's chamber for the signature. And if you verify the date, you can see that we have done it along with the day in which he signed. So okay, just keep that in mind. It's a big statement, but I wanted you people to take that out because it is not just a single line. It's a major thing as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. Thank you.
Yeah, may I request Kathy to give the vote of thanks?
Good afternoon, one and all. I, Khyati, on behalf of VDC and E-Club team of Geetam, would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Melissa Sassy for offering the broader perspective on social entrepreneurship. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Dr. Narayan and Fattaram for bringing a lot of valuable information in the area of agriculture. The metrics in the discussion and possibilities has added a lot of carry forward and think through. Our special thanks to Mr. Mendes Srinivasulu for offering his valuable insights on the agripreneurship and the possibilities it has to offer for student communities. Further, we are grateful to Dr. Pradeep Radhakrishnan for offering his valuable insights into involving communities in solving for local problems. I also extend my thanks to Mr. Krish Nangegadda, the Chief Innovation Officer at Geetam, and Professor Dr. Sridhar Voleti, Dean of Entrepreneurship Guide, for the guidance and support in the successful coordination of today's event. Finally, I would like to thank and acknowledge our entire Geetam fraternity and our audience who have joined us today in person and also our viewers online for their time and presence. Once again, thank you everybody and have a great day.